Well, Red Hat's the devil. And Ubuntu has been degraded. It is now just a demon. That's basically what's happened. I've been meaning to make this video for a little bit. A lot of people have been asking me about CentOS, and I wanted to see how all this shakes out and see if they would reverse course, because most people know I've been always kind of bashing on Ubuntu or Canonical because some of their choices in business. And this last choice was just so terrible by Red Hat that I thought surely they're going to see reason and they're going to reverse course of action. Just give it a week or two. The outcry alone will be enough to make them change their mind. But that never happened. And it looks like they're just going to stick to their guns on this one, which is beyond me. What has happened? Why is this such an egregious, probably one of the worst things I've ever seen happen to Linux? And I do mean that. That's not an over-exaggeration or a dramatization of what's happened. Because Linux, for better or worse, like the Linux desktop and all the stuff you see all the other YouTubers talk about, honestly, it doesn't even matter. It's like 1 or 2% of the population. It's just this minute thing. Where Linux has succeeded and is used all over the world is the desktop and server realm. And I have created more than 100 different CentOS servers. 100 CentOS servers. Just let that sink in for a little bit. These are telephony boxes that are used all over the place, all over the nation. And it is one of those things where those servers now can no longer use CentOS or won't be able to at the end of life. Sometime in probably 2022 is when they're going to need to be changed. And that is crazy. Absolutely crazy. I know system admins that have migrated hundreds, in some cases thousands of servers to CentOS 8. And where all the uproar, all the outrage of this is they're stopping end of life of CentOS 8 in 2021. Now, all these hobbyists in the Linux community are like, oh, who cares? That's a year out. Well, for us that actually use Linux, like the rest of the world uses Linux, this is a huge deal because CentOS was our go-to. This was our rock that we would create a server, it would last for a decade. That's right. You create a new server and you know, hey, this has support for 10 years. That's why we used it. And it was security and privacy oriented, and it just worked really, really well. You build out a website, you throw it on a CentOS server, and you literally can forget about it until your kids are in high school. That's how this works. That's why it's such a big deal. And for them to release CentOS 8 literally within the past year, and then all of a sudden just say, oh, hey, just kidding, we're going to switch this to Stream or whatever the hell it is now, which we're going to get into it. We'll get on the desktop and talk about this in a second. It's just a beyond... I'm lost words. I just want to sit here and throw profanities at Red Hat for how just idiotic this is. I can't believe they would ruin their entire reputation. And I do mean ruin. There is not a Red Hat system I would install now or recommend, where that's all I would recommend for a long-term release. And I know a lot of other system admins. Think about the system admin that did 1,000 CentOS server upgrades from 7 to 8 and go, okay, I'm good for 10 years. And then all of a sudden CentOS does this or Red Hat does this. Yeah, you're never going to get that user back. Never. When we dedicate thousands of hours of work and you just crap on us on it, I mean, just, anyways, I'm going to go down a dark place right now when I'm talking about this, and it's taken me a long time to make this video just because of what has happened. And that's where the outrage is. I just want to emphasize that because so many people just don't understand what system admins are going through and why this is such a big deal. I saw replies on Twitter and other YouTube channels where people are like, it's not that big a deal. I'm like, no, okay. Yeah, maybe for you that uses it for a desktop and it's just in there occasionally, yeah, who cares? But for most of the world that uses Linux, this is a massive thing. But let's get on the desktop and go through the Q&A. All right. And I'm going to do this on my Windows box just because. Yeah, the future of CentOS. It kind of lays out what all their thoughts were with this. The biggest thing was this right here. Updates to CentOS Linux 8 will discontinue at the end of 2021. We already talked about that. And there will be no CentOS Linux 9. It is now CentOS Stream. So what is this? And you can read through all these. Probably the biggest questions towards the end, though. And this is one question that kind of stuck in my mind. When I think of CentOS Stream and what that is, I think of Fedora, because Fedora is basically a rolling release. How's that different from CentOS Stream? And this isn't the interesting thing. This means we are improving and influencing the shipping releases of RHEL. And it's focused on the next RHEL minor release, where Fedora is a testing area for changes that may occur. Now, the wording here is a little bit convoluted when looking through all of this, but the gist of it is CentOS Stream will be more stable than Fedora, less of a testing ground in the respect that Fedora is, and more of kind of a middle ground between RHEL, CentOS, and then you'll have Fedora kind of sitting here more on the bleeding edge. And that's where CentOS Stream is. Did it need to be here? Will people actually use this? No. I'm not going to use it. So let's talk about what our alternatives are. The actual creator of CentOS Linux is making Rocky Linux. His name's Greg Kurtzer. And he is one of the founders of the CentOS project. So he's actually coming back and making Rocky Linux and revitalizing it to have an enterprise-grade, production-ready Linux like CentOS was. Because CentOS Stream is not suitable for pretty much any environment that I can think of. Why would I use that when there's so many other different options that are far better suited? I can't tell I'm a little bitter, can you? But Rocky Linux is at least here. Get over here, join the discussion if you can. I hope they put like a Patreon on here. I don't think I've even seen anything, but jump on here, see how this is doing. But I imagine he'll have some type of rock solid release, that first iteration, sometime before the end of 2021. And a lot of people are thinking, well, why can't he just fork CentOS 8 and redo it? There's a lot of things he needs to do on the back end, and it's not just another Linux release when it comes to Rocky Linux. This is meant to be long-term. It means to be more stable, better than Ubuntu or any other distribution. That's why we use CentOS, was because, well, the packages were rather old, but they were rock solid. I put in CentOS servers because I knew for the next 10 years I wouldn't have a problem with that once it's done. And that's what Rocky Linux is. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not just going to be like, hey, where's the release? Well, I'm sure you could probably compile something that he's been working on through his GitHub down here. I think there's some links, and we can check that out real fast. And you'll see all the commits and things he's doing. Obviously, Christmas is today, and it's right around the corners, but you still see a lot of stuff that's happening in the background with this. And there's a lot of things that go into Rocky Linux. And that's why this is obviously going to take some time to get that initial release, but definitely support him if you can. Get on here. I don't even see a donate on his GitHub. I can't find any donation links for him just yet, but I'm sure it's coming. But I know it's going to be a quality product because this is the man that created CentOS and the thing that we all love and that no longer exists. CentOS to me is dead. I'm not going to install CentOS Stream. Red Hat can go F themselves. And that's where we're going to leave this video. Because I can't talk about this anymore. It took me forever to say that. And this is the most toned down as I get when it comes to this specific subject. I'm not bitter at all, am I?